Hello and welcome to From the Fringe. This is Chris. Today we are talking about cryptids and unusual animals. When I say unusual animals, I mean like freaky animals. They're natural looking animals, but there's something strange about them. I think first of all, we're going to start with the crawlers. I'm sure you've all heard of crawlers. They're fairly well known amongst internet lore, paranormal lore, I should say. They are these generally tall, extremely emaciated, thin, pale, hairless humanoids, which are called crawlers because they tend to travel on their hands and knees. They crawl, hence the name crawlers. And so let's start this video with a crawler encounter. Here we go. Not me, but my co-worker Scott. He went deer hunting right around the first week of December. He was sitting in a tree stand, and after about an hour or two of being there, he hears the brush move, like 200 yards away. Thinking it was a deer, Scott put the rifle up and looked through the scope. What he saw was this thing, real skinny, almost bones, white as a sheet, running after a deer. This thing got to a clearing, stopped, and looked straight towards where Scott was in the tree stand. He said he never felt fear like that. Said it was like it knew that it was being watched. Then it began getting closer. It crawled on all fours, like how a person crawls. The thing got to where his truck was parked, sniffed around, then stood up, standing about 7 to 8 feet tall. Scott said at this point, he started praying to God. Then the thing left, and as soon as it did, Scott left all his gear and ran to his truck, driving away as quickly as possible. To this day, he won't go into the woods alone. Back in 2007 in the UK, a highway surveillance video surfaced on social media, which seemed to have captured an unidentified creature resembling a crawler. Suspecting that the footage may have been digitally manipulated, investigators contacted the Traffic Management Authority. Quote, "We checked with the local authorities who oversee the CCTVs in this area, and it is not faked. They say it is genuine footage. This creature was filmed on CCTV running across a motorway in the UK." Close quote. Meaning that what we see here in the footage is what the traffic surveillance cameras actually recorded. The motion of the creature is reminiscent of this. And it also reminded me of the Ulas family from southern Turkey. This family is afflicted with a rare genetic mutation which affects their balance and coordination. The reason why I'm showing these videos is I just wanted to demonstrate that a human is capable of moving in this fashion, the same as the crawler that we see in the highway footage. Whether this explains the highway crawler, I'm not too sure. The highway crawler looks a little bit more uncanny and it does look a little more unnatural, although that horse girl looks pretty freaky. So I'm going to read one more report of another interesting crawler encounter. It was about 2 a.m. one night in September 2018. We live about 25 minutes out of town in northern British Columbia, Canada, and our house is surrounded by the woods. Because it's such a dead road, we usually pull out of the driveway first and then turn on our lights. So I'm behind the wheel. I pull out to go left down the road, and then I turn the high beams on. It's then that we see it. We see this weird, hairless, pale humanoid creature crouching in the middle of the road. It almost seemed to be glowing, but that was probably because it was such a pale white, and I hadn't turned off my high beams. It whipped its head towards us, as if it was surprised by our lights turning on. After a second, it shambles across the rest of the road in jerky movements and down into the ditch, which was about 3 feet deep. But that's not it. We both watched as it went down into the ditch, and it turned around to face us. And then it stood up onto its back legs, exactly like a human, but not quite. It stood over 5 feet higher than the ditch, taller than our car at the time. And remember, the ditch is already 3 feet deep, so this creature was easily over 7 feet tall, possibly 8. It looked aggressive, hunched at the shoulders, and leaning forward slightly, as if to look into the car, and I swear I made eye contact with it. It wasn't watching the car drive by. It wasn't looking at the car. It was looking through the window, and it was looking right at me. Whatever it was intelligent, and it knew that the car wasn't moving by itself. It knew that we were inside. I drove so slowly, turning my head and keeping eye contact with it as we drove past, and it did the same, craning its neck to watch me leave. Eventually, it's out of my vision, and I look back at the road. We were both completely silent as we passed. I was driving less than 10k per hour, having taken my foot off the gas as an initial reaction to seeing something in the road. To this day, I don't really tell people, because they just laugh it off or try to explain it as an albino starving bear or something. Okay, so the crawler reports are really interesting and all, but let's move away from humanoids and have a look at a few reports, encounters, experiences with freakish animals. Check this one out. We were in the Dominican Republic, staying at a locally owned hotel. It was a nice hotel, but nothing luxurious. A very open-air sort of place. I'm reading in bed, and my husband comes out from the bathroom, completely white-faced and in shock. There's a spider in the bathroom, he says. I look at him and laugh. Spiders in the Dominican Republic are big, but nothing to freak over. He looked like he had seen Satan himself by his expression. So I go to the bathroom, and what I see are 4 thick, hairy, orange and black legs coming out of the sink basin. They were at least 10 inches long, and at least as thick as a pencil. They were very hairy, and from about 5 feet away, I could see the separate orange and black hairs. I'm short, so I couldn't see the whole thing over the sink from that distance. There was a towel blocking the direct view, plus the sink basin itself, but just by the legs, I knew I was looking at an almost 2-foot wide spider. I calmly walked back to my husband. "Did you see it? Did you see it?" he says. I nod, and we leave the room to get help from the front desk. Of course, they laugh at the hysterical tourists as they follow us back to the apartment. And of course, now the spider's gone. Now, if I saw a spider that big in my apartment and it went missing, I am not sleeping that night. She continues, "It wasn't until a little while later that my husband, while discussing Harry, our pet name for this spider, realized that I had only seen half of it. He saw the whole body, and the body, minus the legs, was as wide as his entire hand, a grown man's hand. So the spider was likely bigger than 2 feet in diameter. He also said that there were multiple big black eyes." The woman then describes the spider as resembling this, which is the Mexican red knee spider. She says, "The colors are right, as is the texture of the fur." Nature does sometimes produce specimens of freakish size, usually due to a genetic malfunction of sorts, which may or may not explain the giant spider. But what about this next story? Could faulty genetics be at play here too? Years ago, I was at a state park and was wandering along the trails when I saw a squirrel run down a tree and across the trail. It ran into the bushes and then immediately turned back to flee from the creature pursuing it. In a split second, the creature that was pursuing it had the squirrel in its mouth. It sat there in the middle of the trail, chomping the dead squirrel and trying to turn the little body around so it could swallow it. What I was looking at was a very large lizard with 6 perfectly formed legs spaced regularly down the body, 3 to each side. It was almost 3 feet long and looked like a giant skink of some kind. Snake-like body, short stumpy legs, pale underbelly, brown top with a subdued, faded banding of red and black all along the length. Usually with mutants, extra legs sprout from the same spots as normal legs, but this thing had 6 completely functional, perfectly formed legs. I've never seen anything like it before or since. As I used to keep reptiles, I decided to try and catch it. It didn't look venomous, so I slowly moved towards it. However, it had its eyes on me from the moment that it had snagged the squirrel, and it was waiting for me to try something. Faster than I could move, it darted back into the underbrush. I went right after it and chased it off trail about 30 feet until it ran into a hole in the root system of a tree. I tried digging it out, but the hole was too deep to see anything, and I didn't have a flashlight. I gave up and never saw it again. That's pretty much all I have for you today, but I did want to just quickly share 2 short experiences, 2 short encounters that I've previously shared with you. These are older stories from older videos, but they are 2 of the most bizarre creatures that I think I've come across in all of my internet travels looking for bizarre creatures. So check it out, and I'll see you guys next time. This occurred in Evanston, Illinois, in the spring of 2020. I live in Evanston, Illinois, just north of Chicago. I was asked by my mother's friend to move some stuff to a storage unit nearby. I had not been working because of COVID, and the pay was decent, so I went ahead and agreed. It was raining all day, off and on, but at times it got so heavy that I couldn't transfer boxes from my car to the unit, so I'd just get comfortable inside the unit and listen to some music while I wait for the rain to clear up. It's cozy in there, to be honest, and the rain just keeps getting worse. It's not very cold out, though. I'm just chilling when I start hearing this banging noise from nearby. It sounds like something hitting metal at first. I think that maybe there was a car accident on the nearby highway, which was North Lincoln Avenue, Highway 41. But then I realized it was coming from the other direction, and I really don't want to go outside and get wet. I tell myself that somebody probably dropped something, like nothing serious. But I continue hearing various banging noises. I still don't bother checking, but as it continues, I decide to check it out since the rain had let up a bit. I walk outside and turn the corner, and I see this massive hole in the fence leading to a little wooded area at the North Shore Channel Trail. I see this white thing moving near and under the dumpster by the fence. I'm thinking that it was a large white garbage bag, but it just doesn't look right. I'm confused and I'm trying to get a closer look at this thing. I was maybe 100 feet or so away from it, and I see something sticking out of it, and it's making a clicking sound. I say, "Hello, who's that?" I immediately regret yelling this out, because something big squeezes out from underneath the dumpster. It looks like a pile of fleshy tissue with spike-like protrusions. It stands 4 feet tall, but then it extends up to over 6 feet. It looks like a humanoid spider or other insect, but with white flesh. It doesn't have an exoskeleton, just smooth white flesh. The head is weird, kind of insect-like, with no mouth that I could see. The eyes were human-like and had a reddish glow. It had long slits along the side of its head. It stood there clicking and watching me. I could sense that it didn't want me there. I was wondering why I was still there and hadn't run off, but I was frozen in place and terrified. I had heard about the Chicago Mothman and was wondering if this may have been it, but it didn't resemble anything that I had ever heard about. Then I felt a sudden rush of calm come over me, and I was able to break the trance I was in. I hauled ass back to the storage unit, locked it up, got into my car, and quickly left. When I looked back in the direction of the creature, it was gone. I returned the next day and finished unloading the boxes from the car as fast as I could. This happened in the spring of 2020. I haven't told anyone else about this. Let's move on to the next one. This one is from Florida. The Florida green blob. This story takes place, I think, in the summer of 1995, making me 9 years old. Practically every other year, my family would take a trip to Florida. We would usually go to Disney World, but my mother was getting sick of that. So that year, we actually didn't go to Disney World, to my sister's and my dismay. One of these days, on holiday, we were on a beach. I don't remember what the beach was called, but the people sitting next to us mentioned it being the bottom tip of Florida. After a while of nothing happening, everybody was either in the ocean or sunbathing silently. A woman sitting to the left of us pointed past us, to our right, asking, "What is that?" We all turned and looked to a surprisingly vacant corner of the beach. There were no people down there, but what was there was something really strange. We all got up to get a better look, very quickly forming a crowd around it. If I had to describe the creature we saw in one word, that word would be cartoonish. I will never forget what it looked like. It was green and looked like a ball of slime, about the size of a basketball. It had tentacles resting on the ground around it, with two longer tail-like tentacles sticking out of its back. The thing that was the most bizarre and made it look cartoonish were its eyes, which were on stalks that stood about a foot off its body. The eyes looked creepily human and just looked at us in an almost disinterested way. The other strange thing about it was its mouth, which never seemed to close. And where you'd expect teeth were just tooth-shaped fleshy protrusions. No one, not even the creature, seemed scared, and after a while, it lazily slithered back into the ocean.